Okay, good afternoon. I am Enzo Budiarjo. Welcome to Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon to try and figure out the future for smarter buildings. So it's really good to have you with us today. If in case you're wondering who we are, our profiles are listed on mondaylive.org. So head over there. And just to note that the views expressed here in this hour are personal, not of any company or organization. Keep that in mind. And let's make this as interactive as possible on the Zoom chat. And if you want any of the slides that's presented, it's also available on the homepage of mondaylive.org. And this being January, leading up to AHR in Vegas, our theme has been the road to Las Vegas, just sort of talking about what to anticipate at the AHR and the ASHRAE winter meeting. So we're going to continue that with our normal news chit chat and trends. And then on the road to Vegas, we're going to be talking about the M words, these 4 M words that we'll dig into a little bit later. But before we do that, I'm going to, as always, hand it over to Ken Sinclair for some news from automated buildings. Ken?
Thanks, Anto. As always, my slide here is terribly confusing and a lot of stuff going on, but I think it's very indicative of what's happening as we all position and get ready to go to Vegas. Right across the top, this links back to Keeman's article and links to all of the things that he sees going on and the recommended events he feels that we should be going to. We've added all of our speakers. You can meet all of our speakers there, and we've linked them right back directly to the AHR site. So it becomes another way of navigating this particular piece of the AHR site because it's kind of huge but what it does is when you click down and drill down and pick out a particular speaker, you not only get to see what they're doing for automated buildings, you also get to see what they're doing for BACnet and what other affiliations they have. So I found that interesting as I was checking all the links. It was like, oh, I didn't know he was speaking there. I didn't know he was doing that. So it becomes a very valuable tool, I think. Sometimes that AHR site can be just a bit overwhelming. The other thing too, I'm not sure if you've downloaded the app or not, but that's quite a useful tool as well to try and come at this thing. This is a big event with 50,000 folks expected, and there's a lot of moving pieces. So I think it's worth having our own unique navigation systems, and C4SB has done the same, and you guys are pulling the people out to the exhibit floor for your sessions. So there's a lot of complexities, and somebody's just coming at it for the first time. Underneath that, we've got the summary of last week's Monday Live, Building Smarter Together, the Road to Vegas and the Future of Open Innovation. That was been well received, lots of hits, lots of people are looking at that. Then we had an article come out why we're still talking about efficiency and why you should too. I kind of like the graphic as it shows this down thing and it's knocking those silos down. I like visualizations like that, so that's a good one. And that's by Stephanie, who's one of our speakers. And it links to her sessions, and Danielle is part of that session as well. So it's good. Down at the bottom there, a technician's guide to lifelong learning. This is one of our contributing editors, Thomas. And Thomas came to us from Vietnam, and he came to America and basically is a self-made man, and very interesting stories. But he reminds us that the amazing opportunity that we all have every day to learn and it's a good read, and it's a good. I think sometimes we get a little frustrated and don't know if all of this stuff is actually making sense. But we have an incredible opportunity to learn all kinds of new systems, all kinds of new approaches, and we should embrace it, and we should be thankful for it. Next one over is we're trying to have a little bit of fun with the controller showdown. It's got the Elvis imitator theme. Should be fun. So we get some people that give us their best control pitch, and the audience boos and cheers them on. And this is our fourth session of that. So that's there. Next to that is the community reception for the BACnet collective. Let's get that. Thank you. The collective words. So, and other than that, it's we've got some particular twists to our sessions promoted there. And I think that's probably about it. Back to you, Anto.
Thank you, Ken. Rick, what's new from C4SP this week?
Well, we've been focusing on 100% of our attention, I think, on AHR. Along the way, we've been having new conversations with organizations that are interested in adding their projects to this list. But at AHR, as we've talked about the last couple of weeks, we see an incredible opportunity for networking and for the different people that are interested in different parts of a tech stack or different parts of a solution or different parts of for their solutions fit in different parts of the industry to just have conversations with the other people who are interested in something else that is in part of one of our working groups, and the ability to just have those kind of ad hoc conversations. Now we've got the schedule of presentations that are going to happen on the show floor. That list, I believe, is on automated buildings. It's on our website, and we're going to be going over that, finalizing that this week, and then next Monday on Monday Live, we'll kind of go over that schedule one more time. Dorothy will make a return visit and kind of give a little bit of a tour and orientation and a little high level intro of each of the different projects and presentations. And then we're going to be at AHR before you know it.
Yay.
Ready or not.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Rick. From my side, I bring this slide up every 3 months or so because it's something that this firm, IoT Analytics, does every quarter. And what they do is they look at CEO reports. So this is mostly big companies, the sort of 500 biggest companies. And what they do is they look at the quarterly reports and they just read the actual report and create a chart basically of the words that they say or the terms that they say that would be interesting to IoT. And this is really what this chart is all about. So on this axis, what this is showing is that AI is now basically being mentioned by almost 100% of the reports, which is not surprising. So everybody's talking about AI. All of the CEOs are talking about AI and what they're doing in AI. So that's what this means, is the fact that AI is way over to the right. The shutdown is way up there, meaning that it has increased in the frequency of being discussed. But that's obviously sort of past us because we now know that didn't happen, or it sort of happened and then it sort of is past. AI bubble is increasing. This is the other sort of highlight of this quarter, is the AI bubble is increasing in frequency being discussed. Right. So this means that it's being discussed in the same amount of sort of instances, but it's being more and more discussed, which is sort of further up. So it just gives us sort of a dynamic read on where trends are going. And the link is here, and there's obviously a write-up behind it if you're interested, but it's kind of an interesting snapshot. So that's what I have. Moving on, anything else anybody want to bring up?
Yeah,
Come on.
so if it's okay. Yeah. Actually, feeding off of what you just showed, I just was in Japan for a couple of weeks and I met with some large organizations there and standards group from the BIM side. And I was shown a lot of stuff in their slide presentations, and they had a lot of the familiar names there, you know, about IONT, BACnet, Haystack, everything we've been talking about. Uh, there's a similar interest, I think, and so it's a pattern, it's worldwide. But one quote that I got that was pretty interesting is from Yoshinobu Adachi, who's the director of Building Smart Japan, and he also in Kajima, one of the larger companies there. He said, we have 100 projects going at any one time. In each of those projects, there might be 1,000 people involved. The only way to collaborate is through open standards and open connections. There's absolutely no other way to collaborate on these large, complex projects. So there's increasing awareness of that need, and the Japanese government is starting to require more of that in their deliverables. So that was a good sign. And the other thing that's relating to C4SB, just quickly, we've been accelerating our development in preparation for the AHR ASHRAE conference for the Semantic Building Group and Cloud BIM. And we've been working with Paris 2, with ASHRAE 223P and RDF, and we just started showcasing more of what we saw was a hole in the industry when we put a call out there in October to see if anybody had an RDF editor, because we wanted to see how we can share some of these graph models. So if anybody else has that connectivity, it would be really interesting. But we created what we're calling a semantic bridge app, which essentially lets us on the fly update graph and RDF data relating to building information models and sensors. So there's that kind of parallel track. There's a lot of standardization stuff happening, but also there's this need for maintaining and updating data over time so it doesn't just become a file exchange, which typically happens, especially in the BIM world. Anyway, a lot going on there that we're going to show more at AHR at ASHRAE at the C4SB booth about this.
Yeah, thanks for that report, Kimon. It's interesting to see the same patterns repeating, and we're starting to see that. Rick and I have been talking to some people over at the other side of the Atlantic, the UK and Europe, and we're starting to get that sense as well.
Yeah.
So great to see. Okay, if there's nobody else, let us continue. So we're talking about the road to Vegas, and just by way of sort of reminding us of where we've been the last few weeks, we've been talking about this sort of decomposition and composing using the Lego as an analogy, and we now have smart Legos, so I put them there as well for the hell of it. Not quite sure what they're doing there. And in our road to Vegas, I think the first stop on Sunday, this is before AHR actually starts, is this reception that Ken briefly mentioned. So this will be an interesting first opportunity to hang out with both the C4SB and the BACnet community in this reception. So that's kind of a combination that is new and interesting. So looking forward to seeing people there. I will put this link in chat once we get going here. So that's going on Sunday, and as Ken mentioned, this is the page that is on automated buildings. Again, I'll put the link in chat once I stop talking. And this is the schedule of the presentations at the booth C743, which is the landmark C4SB booth. And again, this slide is on mondaylive.org, so head over there if you need to access this or any of the links. And so when you arrive at the booth, this is what you're going to see. you're going to see this graphics, which is the main booth graphics of the Landmark C4SB booth. So it's really these 4 M words that we want to focus on today. And to do that, I'm going to hand it over to Tracy, who's kind of started this sort of M word craze.
The
Right,
four
Tracy?
M's.
The
Yeah.
4 M's.
Sure. So a
Do you
while
want to
ago,
do you want to talk about it in this context, or does that help?
I don't know that that matters.
Okay.
You can feel free to put that up there. Sure. Either one.
Okay.
So just a little background behind this and where we came up with the 4 M's. This was sort of a result of some brainstorming that a bunch of us were doing a while ago when we first started planning for what we wanted to do in terms of messaging for the booth. And after a few discussions about this and having an AI that's been trained on all of this activity, because I use it a lot and go back and forth over time with a lot of the things that we work on here. I also added our transcript of our brainstorming sessions into Chat GPT and had it sort of help formulate some messaging. And what popped out were these 4 M words, which it was really kind of interesting to me to go down this direction, because they really speak to the goals that we're trying to achieve. So just kind of individually going through there and what the meaning is behind each of these. So from a maintain standpoint, when we're doing all of this work and we're talking about interoperability, we're trying to make sure that it's clearly understood that this is not a scrap and replace kind of thing that we're moving towards. What our number one goal is for everybody to be able to protect what you've already built, right? So the key message behind maintain is, there are thousands and thousands of buildings, hundreds of thousands of buildings out there with systems around the world. And what we're trying to do with all of this work here is to create a situation where you can maintain that existing infrastructure and move forward with that, which kind of leads us right to number 2, which is migrate. And when it comes to migrate, what we're talking about is creating a methodology to move forward without disruption, right? So it's going to take a number of different strategies to do that, perhaps. We're looking towards this open, interoperable, IBD-like architecture, but between here and there, we all know there are gateways and APIs and things that could be added to systems to make data more available. But the idea is to start looking at what you have in your portfolio and looking for ways to migrate forward to make data much more available to everybody, which is a great segue into the modernize part of it. When we say modernize, again, we're not talking about a forklift upgrade where you dump everything off with a forklift and start all over. We're talking about modernizing to make your data available, I think is a key part of that. Normalized and using open semantics, right? That's what all these standards and the Semantic Tiger team has been working on and so forth. So when we talk about modernize, that's what we're talking about, not just replacing old controllers or old systems with new systems. It's more about modernizing your data moving forward. And then the last one was monetize. And that one should be kind of obvious. It's how do you turn your interoperability into value? Using open standards, unlocks new revenue opportunities, new savings, increases operational intelligence, gives you a chance to really get a true ROI on all this work that you've done to get to this point. How about I stop there for a second and see if there are some discussion and questions or other thoughts?
As you were saying that, I was sort of thinking maybe the words your data should sort of be at the end of all of these words, because that works. Maintain your data, migrate your data, modernize your data, and monetize your data. It's kind of one way of thinking about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that, because it's easy to get lost in the point that, you know, a vendor will come along and you know, we'd be the first to do it. Well, if you had our system, a lot of this stuff is already built into it, right? Which means that, you know, I'm trying to pitch you a new system, but that's not what we're trying to say here. We're trying to say it's about the data, not just your platform or your hardware or whatever you might be using.
I think this is a good presentation, and you virtually got it all together. I think it's important that we capture this as a post so we can circulate it to a larger audience. So I'm not sure how best, is that something you're likely to do, or should we?
I can certainly add that to my list. That wouldn't be that hard to do, actually.
Right.
I owe you a couple at this point.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. It's just, we could actually just probably take this section out of the Monday Live meeting and run it. Anyway, my observation. I like the words. I like the approach, the tone, as they call it. I like the tone of it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. If I can add a few ideas.
Some of the other stuff we've been doing has been kind of conflicting or challenging, and sort of, you're doing it wrong. This sounds more like a help, like I'm here to help you, not to stop you from doing what you're doing. I'm providing you extra tools to do what you're doing. I think that's the message I hear, and that's a very good message.
Yes, some thoughts. I think this is great to kind of rally around. I guess this message could apply to many different types. The audience could be different, right? It could be kind of from the technical side, but also from the owner side. And I've seen more and more, and I've thought about this for years, but I'm getting more convinced of it, that we obviously have all shown that this is possible to do with the technology. All this is possible, right? But the intent has to be there, and the intent has to be driven from maybe Monetize is the closest angle on this, from the owners getting some value or ROI from doing this, and even being aware to ask for it. And I think there are too many forces. So if I put my architecture hat on, since I'm an architect, I've seen more and more pushback of, hey, we're not going to share our data that we use to design and construct a building, because it can be copied and duplicated and AI'd and will become irrelevant. So we're gonna strip it all out and put it into documents and PDFs, so it makes it safe, which makes it useless. And there's no way to modernize, migrate, maintain, and monetize if you just have a bunch of random data. Although all of us have seen ways to reverse engineer and get to the data, right? Once we can get to the, like we call the DAM data, then we can do stuff with it. But the biggest obstacle, I think, is just from a business perspective, from many different angles, including the architecture, engineering, construction side, but also in operations, as we saw with PAE and the vendors and systems that are in there, that they're intentionally locked down. So it's kind of a business decision. And I think whoever's paying for this needs to be aware of it, to ask the specific question, hey, we need to maintain, migrate, modernize, and monetize our data. Who out there can do it, and how do you do it? Versus, well, you can buy this system and get stuck in it for forever and not get out of it. Anyway, just some thoughts. I kind of think it could resonate from many angles, but I'm also thinking that our message to the industry has to be more and more focused towards, why is this of value to you as an owner, to ask specifically for it, because the technology is there. There's no reason that anybody should be delivering stuff to you in a way that's not possible to do these four things.
So, come on, to your point around the value proposition to the owner, Um, I would start with the assertion that the data, all the data, should be owned by the owner.
Mhm.
They paid for the system, therefore any of the data associated with it is their data.
Right.
You know, as a principle, as a guiding principle. Now, in order to derive value from that data that they own, what do they need to do? These words here, I think, describe the steps that one needs to take. You need to maintain your data. You need to migrate, be able to migrate your data from one system to another for the purpose of extracting value. You need to keep your data definitions and the way data is described. It evolves. It's an evolutionary thing, which is really the modernized piece. So the way the data was created today is likely to change, 5 years from now because we've gotten smarter, right?
Right.
So the modernizing is really an ongoing effort, and you could almost say it's part of the maintenance process. But the bottom line to me for the owner is is where is a number of things. One, from a from the value of the property to, I think if you rate, does this building have a building automation system? Does it have a, digital lighting control system? You can check boxes, but how do you distinguish one person's building automation, the quality of one person's building automation system from the next, right?
Mhm.
What are the characteristics of it that would make it more valuable to say a buyer of that facility? And that's where I think this data story um, comes into play. So I would argue that the value of these automated systems is directly related to the degree that these principles are being followed. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, the maintenance of the building or the operation, let's call it the operation of the building. In so many cases, the operation of the building is dependent on third parties.
Mhm.
And the degree to which the data is easily accessible to those third parties in a manner in which they can easily take advantage of it and use it to do their job reduces should, in theory, reduce the cost of the service.
Mhm.
To the degree they have to spend, that third party has to spend additional money just to access the data and then make it usable, you just increase the cost, right?
Yeah.
So the service piece, I think, is very important, only because from what I've seen, most buildings involve third parties in the service formula, right? Um, and so, the value of the building, the ability to service the building, the are I would say are the two things that come to mind for me as really important as part of the value proposition. And then, I guess maybe a third from a overall operational perspective, meaning the CFO's world, the degree to which the CFO can see what the hell they've got and have access, in the back office to this data that historically has been really not that good. All of a sudden it creates an awareness and ability to understand why, what they're getting for, again, getting back to the service piece, are they getting value for the money they're spending on service? Can they clearly see, can they manage their assets better because they now know what their assets are and how those assets are performing? So it goes beyond just the ability of the service contractor to do their job. It also gives them visibility to how effective their mechanical and electrical assets are performing over time, which then gives them a much better planning horizon on which to decide when they need to make changes and upgrades to the mechanical and electrical systems, right? So it goes beyond just the day-to-day service piece. From an asset management standpoint, I think that's a third major value proposition that comes into play because of this emphasis on data.
Mhm. Yeah.
It occurred to me that looking at this is that if you were in a walled garden sort of frame of mind, so if you're an owner that is happy with having a walled garden system, or if you're a walled garden system vendor, it's actually very difficult to do all of these. It's actually quite easy to do the first one, which is probably the focus of a walled garden. They obviously can maintain things inside the garden,
Right.
but it's difficult to migrate because you have these walls, and therefore it's really, really difficult to modernize unless you rip and replace, which we talked about not wanting to do. And monetization is not the point of walled gardens. It's to make it specific. So it's in a way there's almost like an and between all of these words, because all of these words need to be in play, not just the first one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
The one thing about the walled garden is some owners, like you said, they're okay with a walled garden. If things are working and things are connected, then it's actually functional, right? You can actually get multiple systems within a walled garden to talk to each other. There's no question about that. But to expand it and to migrate and expand, that's where you hit the next wall that doesn't let you do that. The one word that I understand the intent of migrate. I think it's a good word, but it also could be limiting, because you can migrate data from one system to the next and do an extract, transform, and load. Now you have it in two places and you have to continue to synchronize, which might be the way you have to do it. But really, the ultimate is to be connected, right? I mean, you talk about that a lot too. The connectivity between systems need to be maintained, and maybe it's a migrate/connect is kind of the next level of migrate. You have to migrate, but you might.
Maybe it's migrate in brackets, do not copy.
Do not copy.
Not copying, not copying.
Yeah.
Not about copying, it's about
Yeah.
moving things.
Yeah, because the copying,
Kind
the
of
whole
loses its
industry in
marketing
itself.
appeal then, doesn't it?
It's an ETL, like an ETL for you for every month, and you pay me for that, and you'll
That's
like it
not
and
what
I'll
we
like it.
that's not what we mean by monetize.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's actually could be a bad word too. Monetize in a bad way. All of this stuff can be shifted slightly and made a business model because of the confusion.
Yeah. Jim, you have a perspective from your history, especially around BACnet?
Well, I really like the maintain, migrate, modernize, monetize thing. And it's true that owners are aware that there's value in their data. But the question is how do you introduce the rest of the story to the owner? You know, at the 70,000 foot level, they know that data has value. But now we're putting forward a thesis of how to what to do about organizing that data. The problem I have is, most of the owners I talk to are very disparate groups working in their own vertical markets. And what I worry about with this whole project is how do we reach owners and get the word out that we're coming up with a way of thinking about how to value that data. So that's my biggest concern with this.
Yeah.
So hand it over to Rick. How would you contextualize all of this, Rick?
Well, I think getting the word out is being helped by the fact that everybody now is aware of this thing called AI, and there's now a little bit of an urgency to get to modernize, right? And I would say that if you're gonna accommodate this this new demand, and you're becoming aware of the fact that the old systems are they need to be migrated. But we need to get to this modern level of data availability. It's becoming really convenient, and some of the largest. Anto mentioned that we're getting some uh, interesting organizations that are reaching out to us saying, "Hey, we'd like to learn more about what C4SB is doing relative to creating these models for openness and secureness and semantic normalization and these sort of modern concepts of data. So it's not just data for data's sake, it's data for, well, again, I'm using AI as kind of this proxy for this new expectation. Um, but people are becoming aware of the fact that their data, as it is now, or their systems as they are now, are not AI ready, and that's a really convenient problem for us to be able to to leverage. And it's like, oh, not only is it not AI ready, it's also not secure, and it's not this, and it's not that, and it's not this. Oh, and it's in a walled garden. And to be able to point out the insufficiency of what the current systems are is, like I said, is conveniently being pointed out by AI, which again is really good timing, because we have a path, and that's why I'm excited about the Yellow Brick Road theme for the booth, because to get everybody on that path to maintain, migrate, modernize, and monetize, we have really decent recipes or examples or pathways to be able to show uh, vendors, and in turn show owners that the systems they've got can be put on this path. And so the visibility and the timeliness is all coming together nicely. And there we're going to be in Vegas to be able to say, no matter what your system, no matter what your agenda, no matter what your use case, we have some examples of how to. And maybe not everything's baked. Maybe the path isn't completely clear. The yellow brick road isn't 100% defined, but um, join us on this journey, and it's better than just staying where you are.
So Keith, what's your thoughts on this? How are you migrating to this kind of way of thinking that we're trying to sort of form?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts around this, but obviously the data has to be ready, and any system that's employing AI has to be safe and secure. What I don't agree with necessarily is that you know, that's incumbent upon external third parties or organizations or other groups. Like we sell AI. I told my team on Friday, like, help is not coming. Like, we must save ourselves. So, I mean, I've got to have that intrinsically um, put in the platform to be safe, secure, data ready, and all that stuff. I can't wait for a third party potential competitor to provide that for me. I don't think that's the right way to do it. I think if you're an AI vendor, like, you should bake all that stuff in with your product, and that's the path we've chosen.
Okay, and does that allow you to do these 4M words? Maintain, migrate, modernize, monetize? Suppose
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a similar path. Like, I'm always going to go back to the future with this stuff. When FDDO, or FDD now it's called, when FDD was coming out 15 years ago, plus years ago, same exact argument. Our buildings aren't ready. The data's dirty. It's not ready. It's not safe. It's not secure before we can avail ourselves of fault detection diagnostics technology. And that went on for the first 2-3 years. And then everybody just forgot about it and moved on and started using it. And FDD vendors started proliferating, especially with, John Petsy, leading the charge with SkySpark. So yeah, SkySpark, they built that whole infrastructure on their own to support their fault detection diagnostics. It's the same thing I feel with AI.
So I guess the question to the group is that, help is not coming. I like that.
We must
Help
save
is not.
ourselves. Yep.
We've got to do it ourselves. So
Put your own mask on before you save your children, yeah, or your husband or your wife.
So I don't know, Rick or Jim, are we doing the right things as an industry, as a group? Is that the right way of?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that both things can coexist because I'm actually completely in line with Keith that as an early adopter of these technologies, FDD, we started in the year 2000 and uh, there was, very little standardization. What made FDD possible was BACnet because there was enough standardization to start. But what went beyond that, we had to do on our own. And I still believe that's true today. That doesn't mean you shouldn't support these open standards that come along. And I know Keith realizes this, and I certainly do too. As you support those open standards, it degrades barriers to entry that we basically paid with our private capital to get over so that we could be in these businesses. However, the time constants in the industry are so long that economically that doesn't have a huge effect on our businesses, right? Because whatever standardization comes along will have an impact a decade later. And by then, the subject will change. Do you agree with that, Keith?
Yeah, except I would say decade or two, right?
Right.
Because we were back there slinging arrows back when FDD
Yeah,
back in the year 2000 together,
yeah,
right? So,
exactly. So, I
yeah,
mean, I'm always an optimist, or I wouldn't be in this business, but
yeah.
even though I look like a cynic on TV. So,
Touche.
yeah.
Well,
No,
I will
I
say,
agree.
that I never totally disagree with anything Keith ever says, but there is help coming. There is help coming. Um, and there's a ton of help. There's also expectations that are coming from outside of the industry. And that's not a bad thing. We have to be able to figure out how to apply the technologies in our domain, but it's actually really exciting to see some of what's happening with agentic AI or what's happening with cybersecurity that's happening in other domains that can be then lent and adapted to ours. And that's where in the big bad world of technology, being affiliated with this idea of open standards and open source, and we can look at what's happening in other industries is actually um, it's actually good. The other thing to be aware of is that some of those expectations, and I use AI is just an app. I mean, in some ways, it's just a decision-making tool. In others, but the expectations of interoperability or data, cross-silo data usefulness is becoming an expectation that's it's coming from the outside, and you know, more and more we're hearing it from owners who are saying they want my data to be able to be useful across silos, and the ways to accomplish that are the methods and some of the IT-ish tricks for doing that are being made available to us. And that's where I mean by the yellow brick road, or the different paths for the different challenges and for different agendas. Some of it's being invented in-house, and some of it's being invented across the fence by in some other domain, and we are going to leverage it. So as Jim said, both things can be true. Um, we have the responsibility to take and tailor all these newer technologies or new ideas and fit them to our use cases for sure.
Steve, I thought you were going to say something, Steve.
No, I'm good. I've shared my piece and I'm really comfortable with what everybody's saying.
It was Kimon that was trying to say something.
Yeah, just a quick thing relating to what Rick, Jim, and Keith talked about. I think that obviously we're pushing on standards and open and all that, but at the same time, like we all said, we're running our own business and trying to move as fast as possible. Yet we're fearless about sharing that open way too, right? It's not one or the other. And I think there's also another angle to this. Sometimes I've seen not sometimes, it often happens when the standards organizations make it so complicated that it takes a long time to implement. And all of a sudden it's like, why am I doing this? You kind of get stuck in one way of doing it. So I think that flexibility is important, which is back to the modernize, the M of the modernize. We need to be able to modernize on the fly now as things are changing so fast that if we get stuck in any kind of new silo about whether it's a standard or whether it's this or whether it's, proprietary or whatever, you have to kind of combine it all together and use our best judgment and be fearless enough to know that if we aren't constantly modernizing and we're holding back whatever, then we will fall behind. The worst thing to do is stand still, but it also is not good to kind of get stuck and wait for the perfect.
I think you said something in there or inferred something in what you just said that's important. And that is, this isn't just a singular standard that we're talking about here, right? I think as much as anything, this is a set of de facto best practices that we're trying to move forward. I mean, we may need standards along the way to, sort of kick this in the butt and get it going. I'm not sure, but it's more. I do know that it's more than just a standard, and I think that's an important part of this message. If it's better to do something than nothing at all along this line of these four M's. And don't feel like you have to wait for this perfect definition and semantics and standards and using 223 and so on. At least get started with this mentality and this make your data available somewhere somehow. I think is a good first step.
Yeah, I've joked about it sometimes calling it a proprietary open standard in the BIM world. If you make it so complex, there's only a few people that can do it, then why bother? It's
yeah,
it might be perfect.
It's a double-edged sword. I mean, look at the object lesson of getting mired in a standard and complete failure, mostly failure, was obics. I was there in that room, Anno, Train, Johnson, all the folks that we had that meeting in the hotel room, and we came up with this open building information exchange protocol. It was an OASIS standard. And by Rev 0.9, I resigned from the OPIX committee out of protest because we were arguing over rest versus not and nouns and verbs and all this stuff. And I'm trying to run a business and I didn't have time to wait for this OPIX to get baked in to the perfect version, 11.3.2 or whatever. Like I got customers now. And so we just went ahead and just built our own XML standard and we've been using that ever since. But that's a great example of where it's like we get this star chamber mentality, like, everything we say, we're the gods of the universe and the overlords of the industry, and we end up never accomplishing anything. And so that's why I'm reluctant to really, because it's difficult to get things moving, to Kimon's point. I mean, it's just, we got businesses to run here.
Yeah, just start, right? Just start something.
So my problem yet again with this topic is, I can think of about 5% of the owners that I deal with, which are already big, sophisticated sites, which would be interested in having this conversation about data.
Exactly.
Well, I think that, 10% of the people out there know that data is important. I think 5% of the people are interested in it now. And I need to we don't need to get 100%, but, if we got 40% of the people that, we're really understanding what we're talking about here, I think that would be a great leap forward. And I'm wondering how we do that.
You reminded me of a saying that I read this morning when it comes to percentages. Do we need 5% or 10 or 40%? 10% of your brakes when you're rolling downhill facing a cliff is better than 0%, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the concept of being 99% alive, like you're still dead.
Right.
In the technology world, in my experience, again, having been in both the OT and the IT world, we really don't care about the people who don't care.
Mhm.
Have to stop caring, actually. And being really, really overly concerned about all the people who don't care about tech, that just want to replace that old boiler with the same model. They'll be searching on eBay for finding the one built in 1965 that can replace the one that just went bad. That's fine. Let them. The people who are running buildings and looking around saying, gosh, I'm spending all this money. I should probably be trying to modernize it. I should probably be looking to see what it would look like to have data help me run my building. I should probably be thinking about that across in a new way. The ones that are thinking that way, we want 100% of them.
Right.
I want 0% of the people who are searching eBay for that 1965 boiler.
Right.
You reminded me, or made me think of something too, Rick, when you said that. One of the things often that drives innovation is competition. And I think historically, there have been very few times where building owners felt like they had a lot of competition in terms of, do I need to innovate with my technology? And I'm wondering if COVID and kind of where we are currently with the market has changed that at all. Do owners feel maybe this could give them a competitive edge if they had smarter, modern, open, interoperable buildings or not?
Which Michael Porter, the Harvard professor, in his book called On Competition I got to see him present a decade ago. And it was really, it changed the way I thought about, a lot of things, but real estate to your point, real estate has always been about what? Three things: location,
Location, location, location.
Location.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden it became a little bit different. And so the waking up to how to be competitive is maybe overdue. And it's unfortunate that maybe COVID forced that. But yeah, getting on top of your game and learning what it's like to have to be competitive is potentially a driver. AI is seen as a way to become what? Potentially more competitive. If I could rest on my laurels and just have location be all I cared about, I wouldn't need AI. I wouldn't have to be looking for new kinds of answers. So I do think that competitive pressure is a fantastic thing, and it's long overdue.
Could be a little bit of a motivator.
But guys,
My wife and I, oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
yeah, I guess I agree with all that. The question is, where in the organization does that resonate? And we've talked in the past about the C-suite. All right. Yeah. So absolutely, my mind we have to go there. And I agree with your statement about get 100% of the companies that are open to that conversation in the C-suite, right? Because but to the degree that we can more easily communicate that value to the C-suite is what we need to, well, that to me is our next step in accomplishing and taking the product or the results of all this effort that we're undergoing right now, is how do we synthesize it down to something simple that the CFO sees and says, oh yeah, I got to have that.
So we need to modernize our messaging.
So they can
Migrate and
monetize it, right?
Yeah.
So we can monetize it.
So we can monetize it.
Migrate
Right.
our messaging. No, but it should be a component. Sorry, come on.
No,
It should be a component, I think, of the value here is just a reminder that, this creates a situation where you're more competitive with whatever might be out there.
Yeah.
Right? Resale value or occupancy or re-upping leases and things like that. All of this leads
Right.
to more and better of all of that, right? So, and if people are feeling, I think, the pressure of AI, like if you don't figure out how to use this in your life in some way, shape, or form, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
At least I wake up some days thinking about that. I don't know about everybody else, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. So imagine we create a demo, a ChatGPT type demo, right? And I'm sitting in front of it and I'm asking questions. What is my tell me not just how many buildings I have, but in this building, what's my energy bill, and who are all my service providers, and what capital expenditures have I made over the past 4 years, and what's my how does my energy cost compare to buildings of similar type? But then really start to drill down into things. But just imagine you're having this chat GBT open, ask anything you want, and the answers are right there, right? Because the data is all available. I think if we were able to create that kind of a demo, if you will, to show what is possible, and I don't know, Kimon, if the what's it, the PSA?
PAE.
P, P,
Yeah.
PAE, yeah, right, building would be a good example for that. But having a AI chat GBT like session that you could do on it where you can ask any questions, that would, to me, that'd be really compelling.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
headed
to
there.
me,
with
the key is any question,
Any
because that's
question.
obvious,
yeah.
because that's
Exactly.
obviously doable today. If
Right.
you've sort of configured that particular air handling unit, you can ask it things.
Right.
But any question,
Within,
including how has my cost been increasing in the last 3 months, kind of thing.
right.
Yeah. We heard that kind of thrust over at Realcomm as well too. If it's a business decision, I mean, business driver, we saw a lot of AI discussions at Realcomm of how do you use AI to have that conversation with for your capital planning or existing and whatever. So that was kind of front and center at Realcomm, and I think we're seeing that pattern elsewhere too from owners that are understanding that potential and saying, why can't we do that?
Right.
If we have the data, why can't we do it? Well,
Why can't we do that?
If it's not available, then you can't
Right.
get to it. One of the M's, right?
Yeah, I guess even if we have to do a fiction, right? Just make it up and we load a data set that reflects it and then show, I don't know, the top 20 questions that you might be interested, just so people get the idea of what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
you guys reminded me of doing due diligence. If you had if you had a login, you could get on and ask anything about a building you were about to purchase,
Right.
There you go.
Yep.
right? If you were able to hand that out to somebody, say, go ahead, ask about occupancy or maintenance records or energy consumption or whatever.
Right.
Imagine.
What
It's the
happens
same as
if
buying a 5-year-old car and being able to ask it its
Yes.
history. When did it have
Yep.
a fender bender kind of thing?
without having to
The
sift through thousands of
Carfax of a
dashboards?
building. Huh?
Yeah,
Well,
it's a question. You don't have to have as many dashboards, is what we heard at Realcomm as well too. As you start putting more AI in, you're not manually looking through dashboards. You're asking the questions and it's coming to you, the answer, versus looking at patterns all the time.
Right.
And the one word that we need to wrap this because we're over time. One word we haven't used very much here is scale, because I think we all know that what we're trying to do is all of these things, but not just in one building or two buildings, be able to do it in millions of buildings easily. So yeah, I think it's been interesting. Rick, do you want to quickly just wrap this, conclude?
yeah, I think that the theme of AHR booth with the four M's, or did we go to five? And maybe six M's.
Four.
Will help bring some context to the conversations, and the debates are all good in the fact that we're talking about the industry moving forward, and whether it's moving forward in this way or that way, it's moving forward, which is what I think the owners want to see. They want to have conversations about what's next and how are things moving, what's happening next. That's why people go to AHR. They wouldn't go to AHR if they weren't interested in that. So I do like the framing of with the four M's, and if we think about our products, our solutions, and our organizations with those M's, I think that's really helpful. And yeah, the debate about exactly how to do it is going to be fun, but it's all about how to move forward and provide more value, and that's good any way you look at it.
Okay, thank you, Rick, and thanks everyone. Been good conversation, and we'll do next week. Don't know what the specific topic is, but that'll be the last one before we get to Vegas. So thank you for being here, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll talk next week. Bye all.
See y'all later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.